She smiled for the public even when her heart felt split. She whispered desperate prayers at night, asking for guidance, begging God to show her what was happening, trying to convince herself that things would change. But the distance only grew wider, and here is the part no one expected. She didn't speak out to hurt him. She spoke out to save herself, because a love without honesty eventually becomes a cage. Her story wasn't shaped by vengeance or bitterness, but by truth she had held inside for far too long. And when she finally opened her heart, she had no idea her words would ignite a storm powerful enough to shake everything they had built over decades. While the world continued to praise Pastor Creflo Dollar from the outside, only Tina knew how deeply their home was cracking. She noticed the late-night phone calls, the unusual withdrawal, the exhaustion he tried to mask, the tension that wrapped itself around him like a shadow. She saw the silence between them growing into something dark and frightening, more painful than any argument could ever be. She prayed harder. She asked for signs. She begged for understanding. But in her heart she knew something was wrong, something big, something that would change their lives forever. This was only the beginning of a truth that would shake a ministry built on faith, fame, and image. The strangest part was that no one else saw it coming. Tina's heart grew heavier each day as she noticed small inconsistencies that didn't add up. Sudden trips he wouldn't explain, late-night messages he erased the moment she walked into the room, financial choices that seemed hidden, guarded, secretive. She tried at first to believe him when he said everything was for the ministry. She tried to hold on to trust, but doubts crept in slowly, painfully. The man she once prayed with every morning, the man who used to share his dreams openly, had become tense, closed off, defensive, even angry when she asked simple questions. And what stunned her most was the precision with which he hid his life from her. He preached honesty from the pulpit, yet withheld the truth from the person closest to him. One evening, while organizing ministry papers in their home office, Tina opened a door she never meant to open, and stepped into a revelation that would unravel everything she believed about the man she loved. When she opened a folder she had never touched before, Tina's entire world seemed to stop in its tracks. Buried among ordinary ministry documents and printed emails was a single conversation that made her blood run cold, a thread of messages from Pastor Creflo to a woman she had never heard of, words that were intimate, emotional, whispered with tenderness no married pastor should have been giving to anyone except his wife. She reread them again and again, praying her eyes were mistaken, praying she was somehow imagining the meaning between the lines, but each sentence confirmed the betrayal she had feared in the dark corners of her heart. Her hands trembled, her chest tightened until it hurt to breathe, and it felt as if the solid ground she had built her life on cracked open beneath her feet. Destiny had truly twisted in a way she never expected, and there was no path back to the life she once knew. That night, trembling with confusion and heartbreak, she confronted him, asking for honesty, begging for clarity, but instead of tenderness, she received denial, defensiveness, anger, accusations that she was spying, invading his privacy, destroying their peace. The man who once preached forgiveness, the man she trusted more than anyone, suddenly felt like a stranger, wearing the face of her husband. Later that night, she sat alone, staring at the cross on their wall, trying to reconcile the man she married with the man before her now, wondering how the pastor who spoke about truth and grace could bury secrets so deeply. Her silence had guarded him for years, shielding him from judgment, shielding their family from shame, shielding herself from facing reality. But she now understood that her silence had also imprisoned her. After nights of tears, sleeplessness, and the slow breaking of her spirit, Tina realized she could not continue carrying the weight of this alone. She reached out to someone she trusted, someone who could help her share her story with honesty rather than bitterness, truth rather than vengeance. When she finally spoke, her voice shook, but she felt something she hadn't felt in years: freedom. The world reacted in shock. Some refused to believe her, calling her dramatic or resentful, while others slowly began to see the cracks she had lived behind. Social media erupted. Some called Pastor Creflo a hypocrite. Others defended him, insisting no one was perfect. Donations slowed. Attendance dropped. The ministry that once gleamed with confidence began to dim under the shadows of doubt. But Tina refused to step into the chaos. Instead, she chose peace. She left the spotlight, moved to a smaller, quieter home, and began a small foundation to support women who, like her, had carried silent suffering for too long, turning her pain into a purpose larger than herself. Meanwhile, Pastor Creflo was left to face the consequences of his choices, stripped of the applause and the bright lights, forced to stand alone in the silence of a house that no longer held the woman who once shielded him. Her courage did not simply affect her own life, it sent shockwaves through the millions who once believed he could do no wrong. And what made her story extraordinary was that she did not speak to destroy a man. She spoke to rescue herself. She chose truth because truth was the only doorway left to survival. Once Tina's story spread, Creflo Dollar could no longer hide behind his polished public image. The applause, the cameras, the admiration of the masses, all of it felt hollow when measured against the truth waiting for him in the quiet of his own home. He tried returning to the pulpit, but his sermons were different now, no longer wrapped in prosperity, confidence, or perfection. They were quieter, humbler, burdened with raw honesty. He spoke about pride, forgiveness, brokenness, and the painful reality of disappointing those who trusted him. People watched him differently. Some stayed, moved by the humanity in his voice, while others walked away, unable to accept the cracks in the man they once idolized. But here is the shocking part. In losing everything, he gained an unfamiliar understanding of faith, one stripped of image, one built from the rubble of his own mistakes. Tina, on the other hand, stepped into a strength she never knew she possessed. Her foundation grew slowly, helping women who had lived in silence, and with each story she shared, she reminded the world that truth, no matter how painful, has the power to heal. She spoke gently, with wisdom rather than resentment, teaching others that peace, not attention or recognition, is the real form of victory. She no longer lived as the wife of a famous pastor. People saw her for who she truly was, a woman who survived betrayal, chose honesty over comfort, and turned heartbreak into a mission that uplifted others. The contrast between her rising courage and the collapse of his once flawless image was more striking than anyone could have predicted, revealing a truth deeper than scandal. Sometimes the strongest person in the story is the one who finally finds the courage to walk away. Pastor Creflo lost so much more than material things. He watched his fortune slip away, his once devoted followers drift into silence, and the pride that had shaped his identity crumble beneath the weight of his own decisions. Yet sometimes it's in losing everything that a person finally understands what matters most. Stripped of applause and prestige, he began preaching differently, speaking not of prosperity or grand visions of wealth, but of second chances, humility, and the quiet beauty of telling the truth even when it hurts. And with each softened sermon, he attempted to rebuild himself from the inside out, discovering slowly what honesty truly demands. This was how a man who once seemed untouchable learned the painful but necessary value of sincerity and the heavy cost of actions he once ignored. Meanwhile, Tina grew steadily in strength and purpose, her voice no longer overshadowed but grounded in the steady courage she had fought so long to reclaim. And here's where it becomes truly striking. Some former followers returned, not expecting perfection, but drawn to the authenticity of a broken man piecing himself back together, while others walked away, unable to forgive or unwilling to trust again. Through all of it, he learned that genuine faith is not measured by applause or reputation, but by the courage to live truthfully even when the truth costs you everything. Tina and Pastor Creflo's story could no longer be summarized as a failed marriage or hidden betrayals. It had become a powerful lesson for anyone who watched. Tina's bravery reminded the world that truth heals, while silence multiplies pain, and his slow, humbling journey back from disgrace showed that redemption begins when a person finally faces themselves. Their lives diverged, but the lessons echo the same message. Love without honesty is only a shadow, and faith without truth is an empty shell. In the end, Tina found peace in her quiet, truthful life, far away from the noise of judgment, and Pastor Creflo continued preaching, this time with a humbled voice carrying sincerity instead of showmanship. Both discovered that true strength emerges from facing the truth no matter how painful it is, and destiny often takes unexpected turns that reshape entire lives in ways no one could foresee. Their story became a reminder that courage brings light into hidden places, honesty can rebuild what silence destroyed, and even broken hearts can rise into new beginnings. What sets this story apart is that it isn't just about failure or betrayal, it is about human resilience, the profound power of truth, and the way faith transformed by honesty can rebuild lives more deeply than anyone imagined. This was the end of their shared journey as the world once knew it, but the lessons they left behind continue to echo quietly in the hearts of those willing to truly listen. She learned that courage was not loud or dramatic. It was gentle, patient, rooted in truth, and each day she reminded herself, and the women she helped, that silence protects lies while truth unlocks the spirit, even when it shakes the world around you. Her journey had been filled with heartbreak, yet it gave her a new vision of life, one built on authenticity, one where love could only survive when grounded in honesty, and where faith remained possible even without perfection. Headlines faded, public arguments died out, but the lessons she carried stayed bright and unshakable, a quiet legacy shaped not by fame but by resilience. And what made this story so astonishing was how their lives moved in opposite yet revealing directions, the fall of one becoming the rise of the other. Tina's voice inspired countless people who had suffered in silence, offering them a reflection of their own pain and a roadmap toward healing. Pastor Creflo, humbled by the aftermath of his choices, began recognizing a form of faith he had never understood while standing in the spotlight. Their story shifted from scandal to transformation, becoming a narrative of truth, recovery, and the human capacity to grow even from deep mistakes. As people watched, they realized that love without honesty is hollow, fame without integrity is meaningless, and faith without truth is nothing more than a performance. Years passed, and both Tina and Pastor Creflo continued along separate paths shaped by the consequences of their choices. Tina moved forward quietly, her heart finally unburdened, her spirit no longer chained to secrets that once crushed her, and her foundation expanded slowly but steadily, helping more women reclaim their voices, reshape their futures, and confront the silence that had stolen pieces of their lives. Every time she shared her story, she spoke with calm clarity, showing people that courage doesn't always roar. It often whispers truth into the darkness, urging others to break their own silence. She turned her pain into purpose, discovering a strength no fame could ever match, and the world no longer viewed her as merely the wife of a well-known pastor, but as a survivor who chose truth over comfort. Pastor Creflo continued facing the consequences of his actions. His ministry shrank, donations dwindled, and he traveled alone to speak, not with the grandeur of old promises but with the humility of a man learning what faith really means after falling from great heights. Gone were the loud declarations of wealth and blessings. Instead, he preached about honesty, forgiveness, and rebuilding what one's own pride has shattered. You would never guess how this entire story truly began, because for years Pastor Creflo Dollar appeared to be the kind of man people trusted without hesitation, a figure so polished, so confident, so certain in his message that many believed he was divinely chosen. His sermons flowed like warm oil, smooth, powerful, comforting, and his voice carried a confidence that made people feel safe, uplifted, and seen. Congregations adored him. They followed him like he was the answer to their prayers, like he held the key to their breakthroughs. His name became synonymous with blessings, prosperity, and unwavering faith. But the shocking truth is that behind the bright lights and the roaring crowds, behind the television cameras and the perfect public smiles, there lived a secret story, one that breathed quietly within the walls of his own home. Hidden from the millions who praised his every word, Tina Dollar had been with him since the very beginning, back when they had almost nothing except determination and a mustard seed of hope. She was there in the small rented hall with its creaking wooden chairs, there through the long nights of prayer, the exhaustion, the endless planning, the slow rise from obscurity to national influence. She believed in their mission. She believed in him. She believed that the man she married was guided by something pure. But destiny had already taken a turn she couldn't see, and slowly, piece by piece, she felt something inside him shifting. His sermons still moved crowds, but to her, they began to sound rehearsed, like scripted performances rather than genuine messages from the heart. The warmth that once filled his eyes seemed dimmed, replaced by a distance she could feel even when he sat beside her. He delivered fiery words about faith to the world, while at home he fell into long silences, distraction, restlessness, an emotional fog he pretended wasn't there. Tina did not yet realize that her life was about to break open, that what she would uncover would not only change her marriage forever but also tear through the image millions had built around the man they called pastor. When Tina's truth finally reached the public, her voice was not filled with anger or revenge. It was soft, steady, painfully honest. For years she had lived behind the shadow of a man the world celebrated as flawless, while she carried burdens alone, praying for clarity, praying for healing, praying for the man she once knew to return. She stayed silent because she wanted to protect what they built, because she didn't want to destroy his reputation or embarrass their family. She believed silence was strength, but eventually realized it had become a weight so heavy that it was crushing her spirit from the inside out. She learned that sometimes silence hurts more than the truth, that burying everything inside doesn't heal anything. It simply breaks a person slowly, day after day.